80.
The real estate industry is suddenly faced with two big events, RERA and GST, both of which are forcing it to become more transparent and process-driven. But the transition isn't an easy one, as the mess around RERA has really proven. Several key states still do not have rules. Those which have rules don't necessarily have a website or a regulator in place. And where you have all three, like Maharashtra, developers say they need much more time to understand them and apply for registration. So will the transition to GST be easier? We certainly hope so. Today on Urban Reality, we look at the challenges ahead and find out answers to three important questions. Our first big question today, is the real estate industry GST ready? Are there internal systems and processes in place? That's the big question. Second question, which everybody wants to know an answer to, will GST raise or reduce home prices in ongoing under construction projects? What will your next invoice, which comes from the builder, really look like? And the final question, GST plus RERA, what will it do to the residential market of India? Will it actually help clean it once and for all and bring back the buyers, or will it slow it down further? Joining us to answer all that and more are Pankaj Bajaj, MD Eldeco Infrastructure, Srinivasan Gopalan, CEO Ozone Group, Sameer Jasuja, founder of Prop Equity, and Suresh Rohira, partner, Grant Thornton India LLP. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me. So one nation, one tax, biggest reform, Pankaj Bajaj, is being hailed as today. Home buyers have no idea on what portion VAT is charged, on what portion service tax is charged, because really they don't get the breakups of land, labor, etc. How transparent will it become for the home buyer first?
Not anymore. I mean, you won't get the breakup even today. You are going to pay 12% tax on your the cost of the apartment, the payments that you make.
But you will pay a single tax. You will not pay multiple tax.
Single tax, but there is no breakup which is required to be. So embedded in that 12% tax is the notion that there is some abatement of land, because the input taxation, input rates to the builders.
Is it clear now, the abatement on land point?
No. So the input rates are 18% to 28%. So why is the output rate 12%? That's a question which has been asked. And the government's response is because we are giving an inbuilt abatement of 6% because of the land component. Now the problem is that is all right for lower cost properties, for properties below 4,000 rupees a square foot. But for higher cost properties, say 10,000 rupees a square foot in the case of Mumbai or in most of the cases of Delhi, the land abatement portion is not enough. So you need an express land abatement, but which is not there. So 12% will actually end up being a lot to the customer, and he'll end up paying from his pocket.
So are you saying that if the price of the apartment per unit or per square foot is more than 4,000 rupees?
Approximately.
Yeah. So let's give it a room of 5,000 rupees per square foot. Then the home prices are going to go up after GST?
If it is more than 4,000, yes.
Wow. Okay. And here we have a diktat from the government. In fact, government saying that do not scare the buyers. Suresh, you come in as an independent expert on GST and tell us how much truth there is. Yes, I've heard that ongoing projects, affordable ones will not get affected, budget ones will not get affected, but the ones which are luxury and premium, the buyers will have to shell out more in their next invoice which comes up. Is that true? And do you buy this argument of the developers?
Well, my immediate reaction is that one will have to see, the discussions which went about passing on the input credit, and some time back, which was around 15th of June, the authorities issued a press note mentioning about reduced liability of tax. So that has passed a message which is clear to the public at large, that there would be a reduction. Now, clearly the industry is looking at what should be the reduction, and therefore they are waiting for the mechanism on anti-profiteering. Because largely when people read the news or they look at the news channel, they hear one thing, that there would be a reduction because the input credits would now be available. But one will have to see clearly that what is the quantum of that benefit which can be passed on to the customers. But to my mind, yes,
Right.
inputs which were a cost until the earlier regime would now going forward be available as credit. Yeah.
All right, so here we have now two opposing viewpoints. Pankaj Bajaj saying that properties which are priced at more than 4,000 rupees per square foot, the next invoice going to the buyers will be actually higher because of GST. We have Suresh saying that if you get all the input credits, you should actually have some savings which you should be able to pass on to the buyers. Srinivasan, Gopalan, where do you stand, and how are you calibrating your business and your next invoice to buyers?
No, see, we need to look at it in two buckets. One is ongoing projects and the one which are new projects. As far as new projects are concerned, you can actually negotiate with your contractors. You know how much cement is required, how much steel is required, so on and so forth. As far as the existing projects are concerned, again, it depends on at what stage you are at. If you are at a near completion stage, there is nothing that it's going to get passed on to you. So the customer will have to bear the extra cost to it. However, if you are at the initial stage of construction, again, we as developers, we outsource this to contractors. So the contractors will have to pass on whatever benefit that they get to us, and only then we will be able to pass on to our customers. So what we are doing is, we are going to have the new invoice which will have the GST rate with a declaration which says that we are renegotiating with our contractors, and if there is anything which is passed on to us, we will pass it on to our customers.
All right, so now we have three buckets, which we have early stage projects, we have middle and late stage projects which could likely face an increase in prices, and we actually have affordable versus non-affordable. So late stage projects, Pankaj Bajaj, correct me if I'm wrong, and those which are in the premium and luxury should prepare themselves for paying more?
Absolutely. Perhaps I didn't make myself clear enough earlier.
How are you going to deal with the government saying that please do not? I mean, Urban Development Ministry has come out with a notification saying do not scare buyers.
No,
the prices will not go up.
There is a provision in the GST that you will not indulge in profiteering in the garb of GST, and we can prove it to the government that there is no profiteering. In fact, it is the efficient developers who are bearing the brunt of this. Let me explain how. So the efficient developers were good in executing their projects. Say they reached a stage of construction which is 80% or 90%, and there is no, so the remaining value of work is only 10%. There is no input credit available to them to pass on to the customer. They have no choice but to charge 12%.
All right. Okay, so they've already paid for the work contracts. There are no input credits. I get that.
No, I'm saying that is true. That is true even for projects which are in the affordable category. So that is the worst blow of all. Even for affordable category, there will be a 12%. There will be an increase in GST, which was earlier 4.5%. It will now be 12%. And they will have to pay, and that is irrespective of the price range that you're in.
All right, so let me go to Samir. Samir Jasuja, which side of the argument are you on? Are you saying that yes, builders are on the right to pass on extra tax to buyers who are already locked into ongoing under construction projects where they cannot get input credits?
Well, Manisha, my view is that I also read somewhere that if you got any construction done over the last 1 year, then you can get that input credit and then that you won't have to pass on to the buyer. I don't know how accurate that is or not, but having said that, I think it will be not that easy for projects or developers to be able to pass on a 12% increase in the current cost prices at which they're selling at that easily to the buyer. There is one solution that I find which I again don't have an answer of, and maybe the panel can share that with me, that most of the properties that are being sold today are being sold on subvention schemes. Now in a subvention scheme, most of the money that you pay is on possession. Now when you're paying on possession, there is no GST. So how does that get impacted when a buyer pays you on possession or on after occupancy has been received, and then there should be no GST that should be applicable on the price. So this is one way that could be a possibility where the customer does not have to pay the 12% and the developer also benefits that way, because he's anyway not being able to sell without a subvention scheme.
Why? Why not true? Why not true? Ready to move in apartments? No GST.
No. So if the transaction happened before the receipt of the occupancy certificate, then GST is applicable whether or not the payment happens after completion.
All right. Okay.
Yeah. So if you go for a project which has already received completion certificate, sure, there is no GST.
So you will be able to prove to the government that there is
no profit.
There is no profiteering.
Yeah,
That's what the stance of the industry is. All right. My next big question: are builders ready? Please don't take it personally, the gentlemen on my panel, because I know that you belong to the community which is probably more ready and organized builders, listed, etc. So, you know, all of those things work in your favor. But in, you know, if you look at the industry, it is not known for its processes. Srini, poor internal processes. In fact, there are so many builders who've spoken to me and said, our own internal systems are not strong enough to see pilferage which is happening from our sites. And here you have now a situation where everything has to be properly accounted for, invoiced. So what is going to be the pain, what are going to be the pain points in this transition to GST for the industry as a whole?
See, Manisha, it's like asking a school child, are you prepared for your maths exam? We all knew that the exam is on July 1st. So it's important that we get prepared. And what you're saying about pilferage and other things is their internal controls. They ought to save that pilferage as it is for their business. So I think GST as such is extremely good. It is good for the country. There will be temporary pains in any kind of change or transformation. To answer your question, whether builders are ready, I think even organized builders are not ready. We all thought that exam postponed ho jayega. So we all are working now in order to ensure that let us be as much ready as possible before the GST starts. As it is, there is a lot of grey areas. We will learn about it over the next 3 to 4 months. And then the government has given us 2.5 months for the first return to go. So I think that it will be a trial and error method. And people who thought that they can get away with the way they are currently functioning, I think that the expectation was wrong. And coupled with GST is going to be RERA. So back to back July 1st.
We'll come to that. We'll come to that.
So even if you're not ready for GST,
absolutely.
Yeah, even if you're not ready for GST, you better be ready for RERA.
Okay, let me go back to Suresh. Suresh, you've been dealing with the industry as a whole, and I think Srini's been very open in saying that even the most organized players will need this 2.5 month window to align their processes. There are many grey areas. Would you agree with that larger statement, or would you see that this industry would have many more pain points than the others because of its nature of being so disorganized?
Yeah, a couple of quick comments. Firstly, yes, I concur to the thoughts shared by Srini. And clearly, we see that today there are large real estate players. They are comparatively ready vis-a-vis the smaller ones. Of course, the fact is that everyone is grappling that on day one, which is July 1st, how would they start invoicing, and you know, that invoice would go with 12%. So there is a mixed feeling which is coming from the industry. Some of them are ready, some of them are yet to get ready, and it's very apparent. It's not only with real estate but across. But having said that,
all right.
Yeah, having said that, you know, all the players are wanting to gear up and get ready for the examination, as we know.
The math exam. When we come back, the point of on RERA has already been raised. This is also an event which has slowed down the real estate market. Now look at the number of new launches. They've come down to 320. This is data from Prop Equity. This is for January to May 2017 period. And if you look at last year, same 5 months, you had 1,200 new launches, which if I compare to the year before, were even lower. So we're talking about a huge shrinkage. Come back and discuss that as well. How will the industry face the twin challenges of GST and RERA? back to the debate on challenges of GST and RERA for India's real estate sector. Well, we've already looked at GST, so we're going to now move to RERA. Sameer Jasuja, numbers from Prop Equity show a phenomenal drop in new project launches. You have a situation where the government has told the industry you cannot advertise without RERA registration. You have key markets like Gurgaon, Bangalore and Chennai which do not have any final RERA rules. What's going to happen? What is your own assessment of the situation?
Well, my own assessment is, and data clearly shows that the new launches have come down by, I would say, 80-90% from the peak. We are just trickling through. New launches are just trickling through in the system, and I think it's not going to get any better for the next 3 to 6 months because there are two major challenges here. One is that even if a developer really wants to file his paperwork in the RERA departments, they really don't know where to go at this point in time. And the second biggest challenge for them is, which is internally created by them, that they've created so many SPVs and ownership is sitting somewhere else and the project is sitting in an SPV project. They don't even really know how to file those forms in which, there are companies and then there are front companies, who's the real shareholder. So half the projects, they don't even know how to go about filling in the forms. So you will have a very
wow, that's a
strange situation where you will have
okay,
no
so now finally
happening.
Now finally, Sameer, I think you pointed us to the direction on why Maharashtra, which has a regulator, which has a website and yet has just about 30 odd registrations, the complicated structures of the projects and the companies themselves. Pankaj Bajaj, then to say that, this is illegal, builders should be allowed to advertise, and there's this big article in one of the national dailies today. Essentially, the industry, even though getting an entire year, is not RERA ready.
Come on. I mean, let's not sensationalize it. The builders want to get on with their business. Why would they stop their own business by not registering? Do you seriously believe what Sameer is saying, that we don't know who the owner is?
No, he's not saying that you don't want to.
What
He's saying the
saying?
structures are so complicated that it's going to be hard.
That's even not even 10% of the registration process, that who the owner of the company is. Have you gone through the template that has come out for registration? It is so complicated that nobody, even the department, does not know how to fill it.
Okay.
So that's why registration is not happening. Do you seriously believe that developers don't know who their owner is? Who the landlord, the title, how do bank loans get disbursed? How do home loans get disbursed? The entire diligence process is done by the banks. Everything is all right, but there is, just like GST, there is a pain process which is happening in RERA, and seriously it's much more serious in RERA than in GST, and that is the reason new launches are not happening. Nobody sure.
And they're not likely to happen for how long?
And it was to be expected. That's what we'd been saying for a number of years, that let's not put in place a half-cooked RERA. Let's put in place.
It's taken us a decade to have a regulator. We've had a year. Now Karnataka, all right, so that's your position. You're saying this is half-baked. Okay, Karnataka doesn't even have final rules. And what I hear is that developers are not very, gunning for rules anyhow. Is that right, Srini?
No, Manisha, I mean, it's very easy to bash the developers all the time. We all want RERA. I mean, you look at it. What does RERA say? RERA only defines the way you have to do the business. It has not put in any kind of obnoxious clauses. Yes, there is going to be a pain point in implementation. However, the principles of RERA are extremely good for the developer as well, because it tells the developer that use the money for the construction.
Let's just stick to the point. You complete your point on Maharashtra, Srini, first.
Yes, so Maharashtra has given so many clarifications. The only way we have is we are closely following what's happening in Maharashtra and trying to align our business in line with Maharashtra. As soon as Bangalore comes in, all we need to do is find out those differential points and deal with it separately. So I believe that 80 to 90% of the points will be similar, and the 10% deviation we will need to do. So we are all waiting for RERA to come in, and it's going to be great for the industry. A lot of money will flow in, a lot of customer confidence will come back. And the very fact that you said that the launches have come down from 1200 to 300, there is going to be a price rise. It's a pure demand and supply.
Yeah.
So price rise on the account of RERA, price rise on account of GST is something which we all need to deal with.
You're saying that there will be a price rise because of RERA?
Yeah, you look at, I mean, it's simple. There are 1,200 projects which were available for the finite customers. Now you're saying there are only 300 projects available to them.
There is so much excess supply as well. Okay, so the inventory overhang figure, Sameer, one quick question. This is, multiple headlines there. Are prices going to go up just because supply has dropped so much, or is there enough inventory in the market currently for prices to not go up for the next 24 months? I just want a very simple answer because we've run out of time completely.
Yeah, Manisha, the prices are not going to go up in the next 24 months because there's enough inventory in most of the cities of ready stock which is going to compete with the under construction cost stock, and it is a much more safer stock for buyers and end users to buy into. So I don't think the prices are going to go up in the next 24 months at all.
Okay, we're going to conclude here. I wanted simple answers on what will GST do to prices. We haven't got really simple answers. What we've got is that all right, property buyers will have a lot more transparency. The bigger confusion is not going to be GST. It's going to be RERA, and it will continue to be so because the state and the government is also not ready. So many states are not ready. Gentlemen, Srini, Mr. Suresh, Sameer and Pankaj, thank you gentlemen for joining me. All the best to all of you for the next 3 months is all I can say. Goodbye.